I thought you were ready.
I am ready.
But
I just didn't have anything funny to say.
Oh, you're killing me.
Roll the credits. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another jam-packed edition of David Lee Madison's The End of the Night, brought to you by the Indie Escape. Joe Ridgely, my wonderful dear friend and producer. How are you tonight, good sir?
I am excellent. Very excited for this evening.
I am super excited. It's actually, anybody who knows me will tell you that Mr. Tom Holland is by far the most influential filmmaker who I aspire to be like in every single way. I will tell you, folks, he was a no-show for our AV check, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm praying that Tom shows up because I'm just going to kiss his ass for an hour because I think he's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But with that being said, I'm also a little bit out of whack, I have to tell everybody. I just sat through since April 162 Met games, 165 now with the playoffs, and we're about to get eliminated 6-0. I have my Met jersey on, and I'm just a sad sack of shit because they're going to lose, and that just makes me sad. But with that being said, let's all rejoice in the wonder of Rocktober. Tonight's a big night. On the end of the night, of course, we have the legendary Tom Holland on a little bit later. And we're also going to have Jack Ehrlich on, who's the co-writer of the new Fright Night book with Mr. Holland. So that's going to be fantastic. But more importantly than that, in just a few minutes, for the first time in 9.5 years, Grunkle Scott Schiaffo is going to retake his mantle as the wonderful co-host of this program. And he's going to talk to us about all the things that have been going on with Clerks 3, all the wonderfully amazing things, and he's going to be on the program tonight. Joe, tell me a little bit about that wonderful company that your beautiful wife and daughter have going on. I know they have special sense cooking and all that stuff. Lay it on me, my friend.
They do. Thank you very much. That would be Hearts of the Mystic Folk. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. They are a scented wax company, and they are doing scented flavored waxes for all of our shows on the Indie Escape Network, which are coming very soon.
Now, is there any truth to the rumor that the end of the night flavor is going to be rice pudding, or was that just your bad attempt at humor?
Nope, my daughter picked that specifically for you.
She is the coolest kid who ever was. Absolutely picked rice pudding for me. It couldn't make me happier. And I know not only do we have the legendary filmmaker, Mr. Tom Holland, joining us in just a few minutes, I know that another luminary from the wonderful Fright Night, the great film Fright Night, will be on another Indie Escape show. Would you like to tell everybody what's going on there?
I would love to. Thank you. That would be actor William Ragsdale. He is going to be on the Indie Escape Presents Industry Outlaws United. That will be Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, Brandon has a wonderful show, and Bill Ragsdale is going to be an amazing guest. And it's a month of Halloween, so it's a all Fright Night kind of thing. Is there any good news in the green room, my friend? Just out of curiosity.
I was just about to type you. Yes, there is good news in the green room.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's bring up our wonderful co-host, our dear friend, a pop culture icon in his own, and one of the stars that made Clerks 3. I'm flabbergasted about how amazing that film was and how unbelievable our dear friend of the show Brian O'Halloran's performance was, and how great our co-host Grunkle Scott was in it. Ladies and gentlemen, Grunkle Scott Schiaffo.
Hey,
How are you, Grunkle Scott?
I'm good. But now, has it really been 9.5 years?
It might be 10 and a half actually. It seems like it's been at least that.
It is. I know it is. It's like the last handful of weeks are a bit of a blur. Um, but really nice to be here tonight, man. And it's good to be with friends. I had a little bit of a rough patch, as you know. My dad passed. So, and it was, even though he had a great run, and we were expecting, not really expecting it, but the timing, it was the same week as the Beacon Theater gig. And it just kind of, one day I'm here, next day I'm like, but it's a real life lesson. Life is super fleeting. You got to grab every day with gusto, and some days are going to be amazing. Some are going to not be amazing.
Like the great Tom Petty once said, some days are diamonds and some days are rocks. And I want to, as you know, I know if you watch the show, the one that aired a day or two after your dad passed away, we sent you our deepest condolences, and we do again. We're very, very sorry for your loss. And it really sucks because at a time when so many joyous things have happened, Clerks 3 is an enormous success. You got to grace the stage of the Beacon Theater in New York City, one of the most prestigious theaters in the entire country. And I knew how much it meant for you. Hi, Sean. I hope everything's well. And I knew how much it meant for you to be out at that particular show. Tell us a little bit before we have the iconic Tom Holland join us. What was it like to do that gig in New York City in front of a packed house at the Beacon Theater?
Well, it was a real mind blower. And like you say, it did mean a lot to me. Uh, it's hard to really put it all together now. Like I said, it's weird that I'm coming to a much better place now. I almost couldn't. My dad was a very big supporter, and obviously, well, not obviously, not everybody's folks are big supporters of what they do, but he was, and he loved the fact that I was an actor and a musician. He was very proud. He was a proud kind of dad. He would brag to the people at the home about his son and whatnot. And so he knew the sequel was coming, but the last few weeks he started to really kind of not be connected. So, but anyway, and thank you all for the empathy, the sympathy, the support. David, Joe, I really kind of went into a little bit of a black hole. I wasn't even online all that much, but I caught up eventually with everything as best I could. And thank you, Sean. It's a blessing. I have a life that I'm feel like a very blessed man. I have wonderful people in my life and exciting things, and death is a part of life. And 96, that's a great run. What are you going to do?
No, absolutely. And the great thing is that you guys got to spend a lot of time together, and you got to share a lot of important memories. So, I'm glad that, everything was good between you guys when this ultimately happened. I'm super excited, and I just can't wait. Is Mr. Holland in the green room, Joe?
He is.
Okay. Without further ado, arguably the greatest horror film director of all time, the man. On August 2nd, 1985, my birthday, I turned 15 years old. My brother Bob took me to see a premiere of this gentleman's film, Fright Night. I think it's his first directorial debut, Fright Night, in New York City. And the film touched me in such a prophetic way that it made me want to become a filmmaker. And everybody in the world can blame Tom Holland for the crap that I put out. Without further ado, a legend, a man I'm absolutely not worthy to speak to, but ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Holland. Oh, Mr. Holland, we can't hear you.
Are you there? Let's see.
Is his mic off?
No, it's not off.
Sadly, we can't hear you, Mr. Holland. If you could hear us, I don't
I
know.
think he hears us. He hears us.
He
Yeah,
hears
can-
us, okay?
Mr. Holland, are you using an iPad by chance? I'm going to need you to shake your head, yes or no, please, because I can't hear you.
No
you're not
iPad.
using it.
Okay.
Usually that's a eye issue.
Should
let
he
me
sign
drop
out
it
and
down.
sign back in?
Hold on
Maybe?
a second. Okay, I just saw him mute his mic and unmute his mic.
Okay.
All right, can you speak again, please? Yeah, no.
Oh.
What I'm going to have to ask Mr. Holland, if you could possibly close out the window and then go click the link again to come back in to the green room, if you would, please.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Holland. Okay. Oh, gosh. I'm going to literally jump off a cliff if we have technical difficulties with Tom Holland.
Well, okay, we got Brandon. Appreciate the kind shout out for my show, gentlemen. Looking forward to a great show with a legend in Tom Holland. Also, welcome back, Scott. You've been in my prayers.
Thank
And
you.
you know what's great? Even if, God forbid, for some reason we can't connect with Tom Holland, Tom Holland was just on our show.
Right?
We could
He was
take a
right
picture.
there.
He was right there. Right there. I'm giddy from that
You
alone.
can't make that stuff
You
up.
can't
That was
make
no
that-
Disney animatronics.
No. That was freaking Tom Holland right there. Yeah, so, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Holland joined us a moment ago. He was having some difficulties with his sound. So hopefully we can get Mr. Holland back up and running and have the sound issues worked out. And that would just be fantastic.
Let's see. Here he is. And now
Okay, now his mic is on mute. So unmute the mic.
Can you unmute your mic?
It's just on the screen, Tom. It says hit the mute button. It says unmute.
Do we know if he's on a computer where when you put the
It
mouse
looked like he was on a PC.
because when you put your mouse down below, I know that's when my controls for muting pop up, but you got to go down for it. They're not there all the time.
We can't unmute him, right, Joe?
No, I tried. Can't unmute your guest. Oh, their mic is not connected. That almost sounds like a permission issue.
But it shows on our screen that he's muted.
Right.
Oh, it was for a second there. It was
For a
unmuted.
second, it was unmuted.
Mr. Holland, for some reason, the mute feature on StreamYard is on, so we just have to unmute you.
And again, that might be a permission thing because when
Now I
try
can't
Okay.
hear you
Yay!
guys. Can you hear me?
Yay! We can hear you now.
Yeah.
Can you hear us? We can hear you.
Okay, but now I can't hear you.
okay,
Oh,
Oh,
1 second.
one second.
How about now? And now we can't
Can't hear
him.
him.
Hold on a second. You can't hear us, or you can hear us, and now we can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you.
Need to find out what Tom, Mr. Holland, are you using Chrome browser for this? I'm thinking he's saying no.
Yeah.
well, you know that whatever your camera is, cameras have mics, and then other people have additional mics, and you got to make a choice
He's,
both for camera and mic.
he's using an iPhone, so it's an eye issue. Are you using Safari, Mr. Holland? Safari has a web browser on there?
Yes, the way it'll work is if you connect through the web browser Safari.
If you copy the link that David sent you and then put it into the Safari address bar, you shouldn't have an issue. Jack's saying, let me walk him through his computer. All right, Jack, I'm going to drop you guys down for a moment and just give me a thumbs up when you guys are ready, please.
Oh, the
Saying-
gods hate me. The
I can
gods
still
hate
see
me.
him.
In computer, maybe he's on a Mac.
Well, he
I
said he's using an
he actually
iPhone.
said like 2 words to me. It wasn't like drop dead Madison. Like William Shatner was the last thing he said to me. So that was actually a good thing.
Not yet.
Okay, yes, the evening is young. The evening is young. I mean, I literally have goosebumps because that man, his films. I saw Fright Night when I was 15, and then I saw Child's Play like 2 years later, and then I saw The Langoliers and The Temp and Thinner, and everything he did always inspired me to become a filmmaker. Fright Night, by far, anybody who saw Mr. Hush knows that Fright Night was really the film that inspired Mr. Hush and made me go out and get Stephen Jeffries to be in my film. And just to see Tom on the show for a minute. I mean, I've had people who are ridiculously successful, ridiculously famous, people who have done amazing things. But this is my geek out moment. And that was fantastic having Tom.
Well, let me quickly say, he's writer. I mean, he's written these things as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
That
he
is
is,
to really be established. These, I mean, that's mind blowing to me.
think about the impact that Child's Play and the doll Chucky has. It's an American horror institution.
That's right.
And-
It absolutely is.
And think about the love of a small $8 million vampire film that he made in 1985. He was smart enough to get the brilliant Roddy McDowell on board. And he was just got unbelievable performances out of Chris Sarandon and Stephen Jeffries and Bill Ragsdale, and just made a cinematic vampire masterpiece. It was just a wonderful, wonderful movie.
I see he wrote Psycho 2, which is a mind blower too.
Are you there, Mr. Holland?
My headphone, okay?
Can you hear us now, Mr. Holland?
Yeah, I can hear you through my speakers around the house. Jack, why don't you come in with us, huh?
I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you? You want me to drop you back down?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, Jack, I'll talk to you. I'll see you when I see you inside here. Okay, bye. No, I mean, everything's screwed up because this is coming in through the camera on my laptop, and I'm looking at my big 24-inch screen with a second camera at the top. But that camera's not picking anything up.
No, but we see you perfectly now.
We're working. Right now,
And
we're working.
yes.
Let's not.
Yes. Let's not touch anything.
No, God bless.
Mr. Holland, it's an absolute honor to have you on tonight. We were just opining about how much you impacted me as a filmmaker and as a person. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Is it okay if I call you Tom?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Tom. Is it behind you? Is that a bust of Amanda Burse? Is Amy Peterson behind
Yeah,
you?
yeah, it is. And let's see, and I've got. Wait a minute, and I've got. Hold on. Ah, damn it. What a stage, Okay. You see that? I went the wrong way.
Okay.
Let's see. No, wrong way. I don't know. Anyway, if you can see.
Oh, there's the wolf back there.
The bat.
Yeah. Right. Or not? Did I block it more?
No, you got to go towards Amy.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. The wolf head from
There we go.
Evil had turned into that werewolf in Fright. Yeah.
A very talented artist did that, and I'm going to meet him at Monsterpalooza, Son of, which is this coming week
Wow.
here in
Yeah,
LA. I don't know where you guys are.
I'm in Pennsylvania. Scott is in New Jersey, and Joe is in Florida. Tom, I don't know if you when I was growing up, my brother Bob was dear friends with Vincent Price, and I grew up with Vincent Price, literally coming over to the house when I was just a kid in the mid '80s. And I want you to know, you may have known this because you probably met him on several occasions, but he thought that Fright Night was a fantastic film, and he was honored that Peter Vincent, Roddy McDowell's character, was named after it.
That's a lovely story. That's beautiful. My story is that I originally tried to get him.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I was told on the QT that he perhaps wasn't in the best of health, and so I ended up. And Roddy was wonderful. Came in, blew me away. But Roddy had been in another movie there, Britain Class in 1984, and I knew how wonderful it was. Anyway, after all Fright Night was finished, Roddy had me over for dinner, and the other guests were Vincent Price and his wife Coral Brown.
Uh-huh.
And I spent an evening with them, and they were absolutely lovely.
Did Vincent cook for you?
Yeah. Well, no. Listen to this. All I wanted to do was talk about his movies, and all he wanted to do was talk about his new cookbook. I swear, it's true.
That sounds exactly like what I would have expected.
Well, one of my bigger mistakes was I didn't carry an autograph book around with me back in those days.
No.
So tell us, how did Fright Night come together? Was it one of those films that was like where divine intervention made everything kind of fall into place to make it such a cinematic masterpiece, or was it literally painstakingly planned step by step to come out the way it ultimately came out?
No, I had written a movie called Cloak and Dagger,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Boy Who Cried Wolf story. It's the same writer who wrote Rear Window. It's the juvenile version. And they asked me to remake it somehow, but it didn't work. I did Cloak and Dagger. But I said, if you really want to do a story about a kid looking out his window and seeing something next door, he should be a gonzo horror fan. And he should see a vampire chomping down on a girl. And the executives at Universal threw me out of the office. Because at that moment, vampires were dead. And I just loved the concept. And I walked around with it. And I kept saying to myself, well, if I was Charlie and I was convinced there was a vampire, what would I do? And then I realized that I'd grown up watching all the Friday night frights on the local TV station in mid-state New York. And so many of them had various hosts, female and male, but one was worse and cornier than the other. And I thought to myself, well, of course, that's who a horror gonzo fan would go to, the host, Peter Vincent. And the minute I thought of that, I was already grinning madly, and I rushed home and I started writing it stuff till I was finished. I mean, it was, serendipity. I don't know. The studio turned it down, but I loved the idea, and it turned into my love letter, to horror fans everywhere. Yeah,
now,
totally accidental.
Now, as far as Roddy McDowell's performance, was there a lot of direction there, or was that kind of what Roddy came up with his perception of what Peter Vincent was going to be like?
What happened was, it was my first film, and I was naturally insecure, and somehow I managed to get 2 weeks of rehearsals with the actors before we started to shoot. 2 full weeks. And I can't remember, the only ones that had names were Roddy and Chris Sarandon. Mm. But somehow the deal was worked out, and I got him. Usually the studio won't pay because you have to pay your actors and your stars for that time, or you're not shooting. And so anyway, we had 2 weeks of rehearsals, and we rehearsed it like a play. And I mean, if you look at the structure, and I wrote. Jack Ulrich and I wrote a book called Fright Night Origins, which has just been published, which is the beginning of the story. It's the movie with a lot more detail. But anyway, there's something, I don't know. It's survived multiple generations now, and I think it's because there's a lot of affection, if not love, in it, but it's all the funs and thrills of a fun house, and yet somehow it stays family friendly because the lessons it teaches are positive. with Peter Vincent, it's about rising to the occasion.
Right.
He had a hero's journey.
The redemption of Peter Vincent. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, when you were directing that film, the scene that touched me the most when I was a kid in 1985 was when Stephen Jeffries was turning back from the vampire wolf, back into human form, and you were so brilliantly just framed for a long sequence of that film, for a long sequence of that particular scene, was just Roddy McDowell's expressions as he was watching this kid in horrific pain. And the scene conveys so much emotion without saying a word. When you were done with that particular scene, and when you watched the film when it was ultimately done, what did you think of Stephen's performance? He really, really hit it out of the park as a young actor in that movie.
They really, really did. I was a little scared because his choices were so bold, which is another way of saying big.
Right.
Everybody else is playing it very neo-naturalistic, and Stephen, the character choices took him over the top sometimes, but at the same time, it's what made him so much fun. I mean, he's lived on from the film. I mean, the one who's the engine of it is Charlie Brewster, but he starts out trying to do right. So there isn't the kind of emotional transition that there is with Peter. Anyway, it acts like a play. They're starting to do it as a play now, by the way.
Yeah, I think in Pittsburgh, right?
Well, Pittsburgh. Then they did it this year down in Fort Lauderdale, and very well reviewed. And now it's opening in Prague in a couple of weeks. Prague, Czechoslovakia.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I will get back to Fright Night when we talk about the book shortly, but you have such an amazing career. How did it feel to be asked to write the sequel to one of maybe the biggest horror movie of all time? How does it feel when somebody asks you to write the sequel to Psycho?
I've been terrified. I mean, it was critical suicide. You knew you were gonna be just murdered by the critics for having the temerity to do such a thing. This is a beat before sequels, by the way. This is 1982, and I think in some ways there's so many better known writers than me turned it down, and I ended up getting it. And what I was saying was that it started out as a cable movie. This is just when cable's coming in, and they weren't going to do it as a feature film. And I said to the director, Richard Franklin, that because we both wanted to make a feature film out of it, that we had to get Tony Perkins back to play Norman Bates. And the only way to do that was to offer him a part that was as challenging as I could make it. And I said, what if his arc, his character arc, is after 22 years he comes out of the insane asylum and he's stable. At least he may not be totally, cured, but at least he's stable. And they take him back to the hotel that the shrink does in the house, and things start to go wrong. And by the end of the movie, Norman Bates, Tony Perkins, is totally mad again, and no one knows it. And the character arc was just so terrific, so enticing to Tony, who had a very, very ambivalent relationship with Norman, that Tony took the job and we got a feature film.
Wow.
Yeah. And to follow up such an iconic film with such a good sequel, you should be very proud of yourself, because it was a very, very well written film and a great follow up.
Well directed, well acted. I mean, it was the last gathering together of an actual crew that had worked with Mr. Hitchcock. It was an amazing experience in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. A couple years after Fright Night, you reconvene with the great Chris Sarandon, and you make another iconic horror film that's to this day the character is scaring millions of people and is still one of the most horrifying characters of all time. How did Child's Play come together for you?
Oh boy, that's a long story. The it was an original script by Dan Mancini. It was offered to me. It had been turned down by everybody in town. There were some problems I won't go into. But anyway, I took a run at it and I couldn't figure it out. I went on and did another movie. Then I came back and I couldn't get the idea out of my head because the embedded in that concept of a doll coming alive was all of us when we were kids looked around our rooms when we were little kids and wondered what it would be like if our toys came alive. That's Toy Story. That's the scene with the doll and Poltergeist, and I just knew that had a huge, everybody would understand that from a little boy's point of view. And what I also knew was that I could scare the hell out of you with that doll. Okay? But I had to put into that doll somebody who was so evil that you as the audience would be worried about whoever bought that doll for their little boy. And that's the opening scene where Brad Dourif puts his soul into the doll. And it's a suspense piece, Child's Play, because you, the audience, know that doll is mad and is a serial murderer. But the mother and the little innocent little boy have no idea. I mean, that situation keeps you rooted to your seat for 15 minutes before the doll reveals itself. I mean, so in other words, it's a very carefully structured piece. And because I'd seen The Shining, where he went down with that little boy, a steady camel on the ground with a little kid going down the corridor. I knew that I could put a steady cam close to the ground and do the doll's point of view chasing people. You put a little doll with a butcher knife in his hand on the other side of that, and you have a very scary situation. So that's why I made it.
Now, did you harken back at all to Trilogy of Terror, or was that not a film that you were familiar with at the time?
No. I was very influenced by Trilogy of Terror.
I could tell from watching it. You just did a masterful job, though. Absolutely.
What I did was I wrote visual set pieces that played into the strength of Dan Curtis's Trilogy of Terror. The episode, I think, was Prey, and it was by Richard Matheson, I think, Karen Black, and it's just great. I don't know if I'm boring the audience, but what the director did, Dan and Curtis, they took a 16mm camera, put it on roller skates, and then put down plywood flat, and sent the camera flying after her about 4 inches off the ground for the doll's point of view chasing her. And then when you reverse on the doll, he'd hold up about a 1.5 foot long tall wooden effigy of the doll, and he'd shake it, violently in front of the camera. Anyway, it worked brilliantly in Trilogy of Terror. So I knew that if I could build in visual sequences where the doll was pursuing people, and if he had a butcher knife in his hand, you'd be scared to death. And I kept stepping it up. I stepped it up with Bert Chucky. I stepped it up right to the end, having to put a bullet through his heart to stop him. Mm-hmm. I tore off his arm. I tore off his head. I burned him. I did everything I could to make sure there wouldn't be a sequel.
What are we, like 9 later?
Yeah, right. I've got a quick story about that, if I may, please.
Sure.
The movie got me grounded when I was a kid because my sister and I went on a double date. I was like 12, my sister was 14, and so we come home from the movie. It's late at night. We're chilling out in the living room, nice and dark, just hanging out watching TV. Me, being the wise-ass little brother, goes into her room, grabs her Cabbage Patch Kid, and then throws it on her in the dark watching TV. And she yells, wakes my parents up. I'm sorry. That's like a memory from my childhood.
The, on Chucky, was Chris Sarandon your choice because of your connection with Fright Night together?
Yeah, I work with Chris whenever I can. Chris is a brilliant actor. He's a delightful human being. He's got a steady temperament. His range is wide. I cannot say enough. And he's got a terrific voice actor too.
Oh,
He's
yes,
a-
Jack Skeleton, yes. Brilliant
Yeah.
actor. And Dog Day Afternoon, his resume speaks for itself. Chris Sarandon is
Yeah, he
just...
used in a TV movie called Stranger Within with Ricky Schroeder and Kate Jackson. He's excellent. Chris is excellent. And he's a rock. Roddy was like that. Roddy McDowell. Roddy had a salutary effect on the rest of the cast.
Mhm.
You know, Chris had that effect on his female co-stars.
I got to work with Roddy a little bit when he was doing his book tour, when he released his book on photographs. And what was most amazing about Roddy that you probably know is that he was an extraordinarily passionate baseball fan. It blew my mind.
Yeah, well, he was a walking. He was a living oral history of Hollywood, and I would just try to get him talking, and then I would just shut up and sit there. I had some amazing experiences, and I meant he would have me over, have me and my wife over for dinner. He had one night when everybody was straight, and he had another night when everybody was gay. Yes, everything you say, but he had a good heart. Let me put it that way. He had a good heart.
And you know what was really cool? He was really smart in that he kind of he took pictures of almost everything, all the people he knew, the parties he threw. He kind of had a great diary of photographs of all those.
I was seeing him during that time, and that's that. I don't think he knew he was sick then, but a bit later he did.
Mm.
That was maybe 2-3 years from the end.
Yeah, yep. He released his second photo album, book of photos. It was just he documented some wonderful times. Tell us a little bit about Thinner. You got to work on a Stephen King project, and just a fantastic film.
That's getting more and more interesting. I'm learning. You know, I mean, I don't know what's going on. You guys know what's going on. I got to talk to you to find out. But I did a book signing for Fright Night Origins yesterday at Dark Delicacies, which is the genre bookstore here in Burbank. And I had 4, maybe 5 comments about Thinner. And there's something happening with the public perception of that movie, or it's gotten on a rotation on streaming or something. But all of a sudden, it seems to me like a huge number of people are seeing it, and I don't know if they like it or not, but there certainly is making an impact on them. And I'm getting positive comment on it, and I haven't heard about it for 20 years. You know, I mean, so it's interesting. What's the question about Thinner again? I'm sorry.
No, just what was it like working on that was a Stephen King project, as I recall. No,
Stephen King, but I'd done a mini-series before that called Langoliers by Stephen, which had been even more work than Thinner. I shot that in Bangor, and I shot Thinner in Camden, Maine.
Wow.
Yes, so I had a working relationship with Stephen for about 3 years plus, maybe.
And Carrie Warrer, was that her first film? I mean, she was a stunning actress, unbelievably beautiful.
Yes, well, she's very, very attractive too. Yeah, yep. I mean, yeah, it was, you know, it was an interesting time. I thought Thinner was. I thought that the lead actor was just terrific, and John Robert Burke, and you know, I mean, just a very, very good piece, and somehow it got buried in its release. And you know, and I can't really explain it, and I can't remember the reviews. But I thought it was very good, and I thought the acting uniformly was excellent, including Carrie.
No, it was a very, very, very fantastic film. Another film that I was a big fan of was The Temp. What was it like working with Timothy Hutton?
Well, I mean that's a strong cast, okay. That was Timothy. That was Lara Flynn Boyle, and Faye Dunaway, and Oliver Platt, and Lynn Shay, and it was an interesting group, and it kept me on my toes, trying to wrestle that.
I don't know if that sounds like a good thing. I'll tell you, Mr. Holland, this summer I got to go with my family. Our dream was to drive across the country, and our final stop was to stop in California. And you would think after driving for an entire week, I would show my poor family some mercy. But the very, very first things I did when I got to California was stop at all the locations of your films. It's so cool that the big disco scene in Fright Night is now a sneaker store.
Wow, I thought it was a hardware store.
The disco scene's now a sneaker store. It's a giant shoe store. Yeah.
I did not know that.
and the building that Peter Vincent comes out of, where he's supposedly works, is now a giant Scientology center.
What?
It's a giant Scientology center.
It's called the Brewster Building.
Yeah, the brick building. Yep.
And I think it was like 1890 or 1910 or something. But supposedly Charlie Chaplin lived there when he was making one-reelers, Silence in Chicago, when he started out before he went to Hollywood. Wow. And now it's a Scientology Center. That building is an architectural miracle. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's absolutely it's such a cool building. I'm crazy enough to have walked through the gate and take pictures and have the Scientologists yell at me. But what are they going to do to me? I'm 6'7". What are they going to do? Hit me with it?
Beautiful lobby.
Yeah, have Tom Cruise beat me up. I wasn't too worried. So, I'm sorry. I'm like a kid in a candy shop, Mr. Holland, because anybody who knows me would tell you that I've adored you since your very first film. I think you're the finest filmmaker and the finest film writer, actually, of all time. And that's just you're right there with James Cameron for me. So that's, I just wanted to get that out of my system. Tell us a little bit of what it was like on working on those Tales of the Crypt episodes you did. You did some wonderful ones.
I did the third one ever done. Lover Come Act to Me, which got all kinds of technical awards, as I remember. The brilliant actress, and I can't think of her name. Then I did what I thought was the best one. It's called Four-Sided Triangle with Patricia Arquette.
Oh, okay. I think that was Amanda Plummer, by the way.
Amanda Plummer in the first one is
Lover Come Hack, yep.
And then I did Four-Sided with Patricia Arquette, and it was just after she'd had a baby, and she was very young. And she was absolutely, I don't know if you could say this anymore, but she was absolutely luscious. And she worked in the part, so it's a fabulous episode, Four-Sided Triangle. And then I did one called about street racing, about drag racing. And it starred an actor who was just starting out and little known. And I cast him. I looked at him on tape, and I just thought he was so charismatic. I couldn't believe it, and I cast him, and by videotape, and then met him. And his name was let's see, does Brad Pitt sound right?
Oh,
so he had the lead in it. And that show was done as a pilot with Dick Donner. And the pilot didn't sell, so the 2 episodes got transposed and put on Tales of the Crypt. So that gives me 3 Tales of the Crypt, and they're all very good, I think.
They're three of the very, very best episodes of that show. Mr. Holland, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but I know we really want to talk about your new book. So let's bring on your co-writer, Mr. Jack Ulrich. Is that how you say his name? Jack Ulrich?
I think so, if he's there.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Yeah, good. How's it going? Sorry about the light. It's the best lit room in the house, but apparently I've got some angelic ghost behind me.
I like it. It's like God is touching you to join us on this wonderful interview today.
And it's Ulrich. Tom can't get it right either.
Ulrich. Okay.
We've known each other for 12 years, so it's a hard K at the end.
Jack.
Ulrich. Yeah.
Jack, I want to personally thank you for arranging this interview. You've made my life. I've interviewed presidents, Academy Award winners, some of the biggest, most famous people in the world. Didn't mean shit to me. Tom Holland. I'm sitting here. I'm sweating profusely. I'm like a schoolgirl. My nipples are hard. It's amazing. Thank you for doing that. Tom is really
glad to do it. I mean, Tom is always a good interview. Tom has. I mean, he's got about 6 to 8 hours of material that no one ever touches on. So, there's always something new coming out of Tom.
I think I need to make the Tom Holland documentary film if that's me.
Yeah, we've all been pitching that to him. I told him to write his autobiography because Tom is one of the last contract actors from the Warner Brothers studio system.
Wow.
He literally sat down and signed his writing contract with Jack Warner. He sat in Jack Warner's office, signed away his life, to the devil that is Warner Brothers.
Wow.
He made an contract.
I saw that.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, as an actor, he appeared with Anthony Quinn and Ingrid Bergman in a film.
He also appeared with Richard Pryor in the pilot episode of Young Lawyers, which was Richard Pryor's first acting role.
Wow.
And Tom trained with Bruce Lee in Kung Fu. For the movie you're talking about, Walk in the Spring Rain, Tom was trained by Bruce Lee.
Wow. Mr. Holland, if you ever have an hour and a half that you want to kill, if you ever get a chance to watch my film Mr. Hush, I think I would weep like a baby if I got any feedback from you.
I've heard the title.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a step in the right direction. There's a lot of loving odes to Fright Night in it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll look at it.
And I had to direct Stephen Jeffries for 31 days, which was very interesting. So tell us.
I'll go ahead.
Tell us, gentlemen, you have this wonderful book that just came out. It's a Fright Night Origins. Tell us how this all came together and what us rabid Fright Night fans can look forward to.
So, Tom, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Well, I spent about, 4 years, 3 or 4 different drafts, which means 3 or 4 different stories, all on Fright Night. And at first I felt like, what am I going to do? I can't use Peter Vincent. Roddy's not here. That wouldn't be respectful. And then I realized that no Peter Vincent, no Fright Night. And then I tried to write it. I don't know. I tried to write it starting right after the movie ends, right after the denouement in the basement, and I tried to start with when the cops come or the next day or whatever. I don't remember, and I did 2 books of that way, and then I got Jack involved, and we had some constant readers, some friends we respected, and they found it confusing. And that's when we suddenly, I had everybody saw the movie and remembered the basic premise like I did. But it was very obvious that a lot of people didn't remember. And that's when Jack suggested that I write Origins. And I said, well, write it with me. And it's the telling of the movie again. But this time you learn about the characters and their motivations and why they're the way they are. And you also foreshadow the coming story that will continue in the series of books that we're going to write. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So, basically what Tom had written Fright Night Resurrection, which was, it took place in modern times. It basically skipped the 37-year gap between the first film and the today. And so Tom had written this. He'd written the entire novel out. I mean, it still exists. It's still there. But the problem was it didn't include Roddy. It doesn't include Jerry and Billy, obviously, and so there's a lot. It's bitter. It's a bittersweet novel because you don't get to continue the original story. There's such a huge jump in time that it loses that. And I had pitched a story called Fright Night Dystopia, which was basically what happens to a 16-year-old boy whose biggest achievement in life is killing a vampire, and nobody knows about it. And nobody's ever gonna, he's the only one that knows that he killed Jerry Dandridge. Nobody else cares. So what is he gonna? How does he top that in life? How does he go on from that? And so we were having a conversation outside of the Long Beach Convention Center where we did a kind of mystery science fiction theater send up of Child's Play. Tom and I and a friend of ours named Sean Decker did kind of a send up of Child's Play. We did running commentary while the movie was going to a live audience. But we were having lunch before that, and we were kind of talking about all the different angles that Tom could take, in telling the story. And that sent him back to the beginning, and that's when he started on this journey from the beginning to retell, kind of the story. Was based, on that conversation we had at lunch one day. And Tom, put Fright Night Resurrection on hold and went back and decided to, look at the story, from a fresh perspective. And sadly having to ignore Fright Night 2 because those characters, even if we wanted to use Regina and the other characters, that would be a legal nightmare, So we've just wiped them from the canon at this point, and we're retelling the story from scratch.
Well, Jack, let's be honest with each other. I mean, is that really a sadly?
It is for some of the fans. I'm not going to discount. There are fans of Fright Night 2, and I as a I'm not going to say as a child. I wasn't a child when I saw Fright Night 2, but as a young adult, I liked it because it was a very quirky 80s movie. But, in retrospect, it's nowhere near as good as the first one, obviously. But, there is a fan base for it.
No, absolutely. Tom, what are your thoughts on Fright Night 2? Are you?
Well, Tommy Lee Wallace is friendly. I'm going to see him at Palooza this weekend.
Yeah.
I know the true story of what happened. They go about halfway through because Herb Jaffe produced Fright Night 2. I wasn't available. I was on something else. They got halfway through, and the money man, Gabe Katzka, Katzka, who I knew because he produced my first movie, The Beast Within. Anyway, Gabe Katzka got sick and died halfway through, and so Fright Night 2 ran out of money. So they shorted the climax, and you can tell it the way the dress burns on the female vampire that burned much too fast to get the coverage that they wanted to make it more dramatic, and they didn't have the money to redo it. It had that kind of problems in the last third. And so that's what I know about it. I think the gal who played the female vampire, she's a friend and her husband's a friend, and I thought she was excellent. God knows she's beautiful enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked it in it being a fun 80s B horror movie, but Tommy Lee Wallace kind of did the same thing with Halloween. I mean, he made Halloween 3, which is kind of like the black sheep of the Halloween series too. So,
yeah, but that's not his fault. I mean, that was Carpenter going, I want to switch. Carpenter had an idea in his head where he wanted to tell different stories.
Right.
Wallace just happened to end on that one. It's like he landed on that. It's like landing in Sorry. It's like, I got to go back to the beginning now. I got the third movie that nobody wants to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, boy.
No, so now the book, is it a graphic novel or is it just
No, it's a novel. It's a 290-page novel. We do have plans to turn it into a graphic novel. We were speaking with American Mythology, which is the company that makes our Fright Night comics. And by the way, Fright Night issue 2 is coming out in November. Shout out to James and American Mythology for that. So we were talking to them, and they would like to produce Fright Night Origins and the follow-up, Fright Night Aftermath, as graphic novels to make those available to the public in that format, you know. But this first release is it's a 290-page novel available on paperback, Kindle, and hardcover now. And Tom and I are just going to focus on the novel side of it and let American Mythology handle the graphic novel side of it.
You can find it on terratime.shop.
Yes, if you're
online.
Or you can go get it from Amazon. So,
Yeah, either one.
Now, is there any chance that Mr. Holland will be behind the lens again for a Fright Night film, or is that something that's probably not likely?
Tom is more than capable of directing movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sad thing about Hollywood is the kind of ageism, you know, that's so prevalent. I think the only director over 70 working today is Clint Eastwood.
Right.
You know, so and that's a shame because, you know, Tom, Joe Dante, there's all these guys out there who have a wealth of, you know, experience to lend to, you know, a film, and they're just as capable as they were when they were 40, you know, to do these films.
No, absolutely. You know? Did you guys ever consider doing a fan-funded Fright Night film?
No, we haven't because the rights, you know, the cinematic rights sit firmly in the hand of Sony.
Oh, okay.
So Tom
I have literary, dramatic, and musical rights.
Yeah.
I wrote it as a spec script. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is Tom has the rights to, you know, create a literary world,
right?
Which we're hoping that the fans react to strongly enough that it sends a message to, you know, Sony or anybody else who might be interested in that there is a, you know, there's a fan base, there's a rabid fan base for Fright Night.
No, absolutely. I the minute this show is over, I'm going to go to Tom's website, Terror Time, and I see that he has some autographed copies of the new book, and I'm going to be like a happy little schoolgirl and order a copy of Fright Night Origins. If I could get Tom to order it to sign it to Dave, I'll squeal like a. But
yeah, we can have him personalize it for you.
That'd be awesome. So you have this book coming out. Is the second book, the follow-up book, is it already written and is going to hit the
It's mostly written. It's in its kind of we kind of shifted tonality. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Tom.
We need to polish it.
Yeah.
We need to bring it into. We've learned that the fans are absolutely rabid about if you make an inconsistency, if you make a mistake in the timeline. So we're trying to be super careful with the next book. I used Blockbuster in Fright Night Origins, and a fan told me that in 1985, which is the time that the movie that the novel set in, Blockbuster came out a year later, not 1985. I mean, what are you going to do? You know, so,
I'm not sure that's true though, because I think Captain Marvel takes place in 1984, and she lands in a Blockbuster.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure this guy was sitting at home going, "Are you kidding me? There was no Blockbusters."
I know, because everybody knows everything. Yeah.
But I mean, and I respect that because Tom and I really, honestly, we did a lot of research. I mean, I went back and during the police investigation scenes that take place in the novel, I literally went back and I was looking up luminol and when did luminol come into general use? You know, like, because I don't know that, but you know, I realized that it was like 74, 76. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, the police would have luminol at the time of when they're investigating these crimes. So, all right, we're good with that. We can use luminol, you know. So Tom and I are, because Tom, you know, Tom, you can tell them about, you know, if you're going to have somebody accept something that's fantastical, you have to, make it realistic, right? That's always your theory.
Well, what you want is, because so many of the situations I've involved myself with dramatically, or in movies or whatever, have been fantastical, and common sense says it would be impossible. But if you build everything around it being very realistic, it makes it easier. It makes it easier if your characters in the movie say, "What? A doll coming alive? That's crazy." And the audience think, "Well, yeah, it's crazy, but oh my goodness." So, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to say first off that there's a lot of people who watch the show. There are a lot of producers. And I'm going to make a passionate plea to everybody who's watching this tonight and who will watch it in rebroadcasting. If you want to make a great film, hire this man right over here, Mr. Tom Holland, because he is an amazing director. I mean, everything he's ever made has perfect pacing. You know what's great about Fright Night? I'll tell you a great story, Tom. I was in college and I was studying film, and my film professor was teaching us about an Italian film director named Antonio or something similar to that. I always had trouble pronouncing the director's name. And I stood up in front of a lecture hall in front of like 250 people and argued with him that you were a far superior director than Antonio, because you could watch every one of your films and never find a technical error. You never find an overhead mic by accident. You never see a reflection in a glass. You never see anything that would show that you dropped the ball in any way. And that was really... everything that you ever shot was just wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'll stop fanboying like a geek. I apologize.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to bring something up from February, David.
Okay.
So back in February, we had Jonathan Stark on.
Right.
And he said, if you ever spoke with Tom, make sure to ask him what exactly he was in Fright Night.
Oh, yes. We had John Stark on back in February. And when we asked him what he was, was he the undead? Was he... he had no idea what he was. And he said, X Tom. So we're going to put you on the spot, Tom. What was Jonathan Stark in Fright Night, Billy Cole?
Jack and I have discussed this at great length. He's a ghoul, I guess, is what you would say. But he's Jerry's servant bound by a bond of blood. He's existing on Jerry's blood, and he is Jerry's protector. He's the same character from Dracula.
Like a Renfield.
Yeah, he's a Renfield, so he's had a taste of Jerry's blood, but Jerry has never drained his blood and replaced it with his own. Similar to the way that you create a vampire is to drain the blood till the point of death, and then insert the vampire's blood into that mix. And that, at least that's the mythology that we're going with for Fright Night, is that you drain the blood and then the vampire gives you some of his blood, which turns you into a vampire. But he's never done that with Billy. All he does is give Billy, a drink of his blood to prolong his life and give him, superhuman strength and, relative invulnerability, but and longevity. But he's completely reliant on Jerry for his continued existence, which is how Jerry keeps him subservient to him. Even though they have a very cordial and friendly relationship, in the book you'll see that Billy has his own thoughts about the willy-nilly way that Jerry creates vampires. He's kind of got a little jealousy in him because, Jerry, goes out and creates Evil Ed just on a whim. And Billy's like, look, I've been your servant for 800 years. Come on, man, that's not right.
No,
you'll learn in the coming series, gentlemen.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. I'd love to stay with you all evening, but I have a wife who would like to see me.
Mr. Holland, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was an absolute honor. I am touched by everything that you've said, and that you're just a wonderful inspiration to many. Thank you so much for being on my show. You've made me very, very happy, and everybody who is watching tonight, super thrilled to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, a living legend, an icon, Mr. Tom Holland.
David, thank you. Scott, Joe, Jack, everybody, thank you. All of you, God bless. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Holland.
Yeah, I
Good
tell.
Night.
Wow, Jack, I
There
can't
you
thank
go.
you. I can't thank you enough for having for coming on and having Tom come on. You are now a dear friend of the Indie Escape. If you ever want to come on and shoot the shit with us, please let us know.
Well, hopefully I'll have more things. Oh, by the way, Tom forgot to mention, this is something we've just started getting near completion. We're about to release Child's Play, a visual memoir, which is
sweet.
a collection of photographs from the making of the original Child's Play
Oh,
that are part of Tom's personal collection. So it's it's everything from him and Brad posing on the scene to Tom directing to the puppeteers bringing Chucky to life. But it's 150 photos of behind the scenes of Child's Play.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Tom forgot to bring that up, so I'm going to bring that up. And hopefully that's coming out. We're hoping to get it out for Christmas. We've got our we're in the final stages of layout right now, and that's something that it's just an exclusive to your show.
Wow. Well, I gotta ask.
We had not announced that anywhere else.
That is
Okay.
awesome. I gotta ask: is our buddy Ed Gale involved in that one at all?
Oh yes, Ed Gale is prominently featured. Actually, I think it's Bud Davis who contributed one of the articles to it. Bud Davis was the second unit director and the stunt coordinator on Child's Play. And Bud Davis talks specifically about the fireplace scene with Ed Gale and how he trained Ed to use scuba gear in a swimming pool and basically walked Ed through doing that stunt. So that's Bud Davis contributes that little tidbit, and there's a photo array of Ed Gale and the fireplace sequence and everything else that surrounds that article.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's gonna be very cool. Yeah, Ed's an amazing actor, and he was for that particular scene. He was an amazing stunt performer.
Yeah, it's his first time.
Yeah, and he literally, I guess he got from what Bud says, he got a round of applause from the other stuntmen on the set.
wow.
Just because it was such a difficult stunt for a first time actor performer to do on their own.
Thank you for dropping that here, and that's just fantastic. Anybody who loves Child's Play is going to be looking for that. It's funny because Tom Holland taught us a valuable lesson even here tonight. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes. So good night. Yeah, good night, Kathy. Take care.
It's he's a very smart man. Jack, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tell everybody right now where they could find information about you and where they could get a copy of the great Fright Night book.
Your socials and everything.
Exactly. You can follow us on Terror Time, which is our main website on Facebook. It's Jack Ulrich on Twitter. It's Jack Ulrich on Facebook. Tom Holland on Facebook. The real Tom Holland on Twitter. And like I said, Terror Time is our main Facebook page. We have a lot of followers on that. And then we have the terrortime.shop where you can buy the book, or you can buy it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Powell Books, Abe Books, Thrift Books, all the different little derivations. So
All of them. I'm looking forward to the Child's Play one, definitely.
yeah, that's super excited. I'm super excited about that. I did a little work on that. Tom did a lot of work on that. And we have an amazing artist named Christian Francis who did the majority of the layout and the artwork on it. So we're very excited about that whole thing.
Well, with that being said, again, Jack, I can't thank you enough to have both you and Mr. Holland on tonight. He was everything I hoped he would be. He was kind with his knowledge. He was funny. He was smart. He was sharp. And anybody who's watching this tonight, hey, Favreau, if you're watching, you crazy hack from Queens College, you schmuck who owes me $12, give fucking Tom Holland a job, man. He's like the best director in Hollywood. So,
Yeah, let him shoot a Boba Fett thing or whatever the hell that show is.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Ulrich, thank you for joining us,
Thank
Jack.
you so much.
It was our
Take
pleasure.
care.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, have a good one, guys.
Good night.
Thanks, you too.
Right.
Well, I got goosebumps, man. We just had fucking Tom Holland on this
We
show.
had an exclusive about a book. We had
About
Tom Holland.
Holland. That was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Wow.
Great guys.
That
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
is like one of the. There aren't that many American Mavericks around alive.
I know. That and to be so nice and so humble, man, is just like it's funny because sometimes you meet your heroes and it's not a good thing. And,
Right.
And that was just absolutely fantastic. I pretty much know everybody from Fright Night except Tom Holland, the guy who brought it all together. So now I got to spend a little time with him. So it was pretty fantastic. And that was awesome. I have an appearance. I forgot to tell everybody in the beginning, but I swore it down below. On August 22nd, I will be in Port Jervis, New York, at Haven for Heroes, doing a signing with our dear friend Jim Crut. Mr. Schiaffo, if you're free that weekend, let me know. August 22nd. It's something that literally just came to me today, and it's not even been announced at the online or at the store or anything. So if you're free and you want to come by, I'll come get you and you can hang out for the day. But that's up to you.
Just so you know, he was watching.
Who was? Oh, Emmett. Yes, Emmett.
All right.
Emmett. Yes. So August 22nd, there's going to be a bunch of horror writers, the legendary Jim Crut, and myself, and who knows who's going to October 22nd. I'm sorry, did I say November 22nd? October
You're saying
22nd.
August, actually.
Did I say August?
You're saying August, and I'm thinking okay,
October
that's-
22nd, just 13 days from today, in lovely Port Jervis, New York, at Haven for Heroes. It's going to be Jim Crut from Full Moon Fever and Dave Madison from Full Moon Fever. And you never know who's going to pop up. It's just going to be a great time. October 22nd in Port Jervis, New York, Haven for Heroes. You guys have anything you want to add to the festivities?
Scott, go ahead, because I'm still.
No, hey, listen, I'm very happy to be back. It's great to see you guys, and I want to thank you both for all your support all the time. It was a strange bunch of weeks that was filled with wonderful, wonderful things and one personal, not so wonderful thing. But just, again, I have no, I'm very blessed with the people in my life, and that includes you both as well. So,
Well, thank you, Scott. We love you dearly, and we're sorry
Absolutely.
that you had that happen, but we're also happy that all the good stuff is happening too. I want to ask you guys before we go off the air. You guys both know that I'm a Fright Night, batshit crazy Fright Night nut. You both know.
I've never heard you,
You
mention
never-
it
you
in
never- I never made-
3,
just-
5 years. What? No, never.
Just today is the first time. Did I act like did I behave, or was I a total douchebag?
A little douche.
oh God,
no,
you were a douchebag. Why would you think that?
No, because when you're when you fanboy out about somebody, it's hard sometimes to hold back.
You were great, but you could tell at a couple of points that you were a little fanboy, and it was cool though. It was like really cool to
I
see.
think he really understands that. And, when he was explaining about the origin of how he wrote it, saying it's a love letter to horror movies, that's exactly what you totally tapped into. It's a love letter he was writing a love letter to the horror movies genre that he felt so strongly about. It totally resonated with you, and it's gone on. It's like it's timeless, that film. It's one of those films that generation after generation pick up on.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of the American Werewolf in London. You could watch American Werewolf in London 35 years later. It's almost 40 years later now, and it still scares the shit out of you. It's one of those movies that no matter when you watch it, it will always stand the test of time. So, with that being said, I want to thank the legendary Tom Holland for joining us tonight. I want to thank Mr. Ulrich, who made it all happen, who co-wrote this wonderful Fright Night novel that came out. Make sure you run to Terror Time and pick up a copy the new Fright Night novel. I guarantee you enjoy it.
And he dropped the exclusive about the Child's Play.
And he
book.
dropped the exclusive about a Child's Play project that's coming out too. So, I mean, I'm super excited about tonight's show. I'm not going to babble and chew your ears off anymore. Scott, so lovely to have you back. We love you. It's awesome that you're back in the swing. Joe, I'm neither here nor there about you, but
I'm just Joe. It's okay.
I guess. Thank you for all you do. You know I love you, kid. I'm just kidding you.
No, thank you.
And everybody who joined us tonight, thank you so much for watching David Lee Madison's The End of the Night.
Let's just mention one thing. We didn't get to a lot of the comments. I was just flashing them up because, I mean, we really didn't want to interrupt on this one.
Yes, I apologize to everybody. I wanted to make sure that I got a shout out to Brandon, who has William Ragsdale on his show, an amazing get. Wonderful connection to having Tom on tonight and a Fright Night in the family. Brandon, you're awesome. I love your show. You're a great filmmaker. I'm sorry I didn't get to ask the questions. And CJ and Ken and Sean and our family on this network and Luciana and Emmett and everybody and Libby and Matt and everybody who was chiming in. I humbly apologize. You know I love you guys. I talk to you guys all the time. But I was just babbling like a schoolgirl, so it's
And
totally
don't forget
my
Camden.
No, you know what? Don't
Camden too.
Camden, yeah. But David, don't be too hard on yourself because that man, he's an American maverick, and that's you let him speak and you listen.
Right,
That's
right.
what he's here for, you know.
No,
I mean,
and honestly, and I honestly feel this way about it. To me, this was like it was like interviewing my personal god, my hero, the guy I admire the most in filmmaking.
And you know what? Thank you for letting us be a part of that, though.
No,
I think that's the coolest thing as well.
Well, thank you. I mean, when I told him that it's him and Frank Capra, I'm not kidding. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life, and two movies that couldn't be more different are two movies that touched me the most growing up, made me want to become a filmmaker. And I can't tell Frank Capra that I love him because he's dead, but I got to tell Tom Holland tonight that I love his work and that he was awesome and inspiring me to take a swing at some of the things that I've done in life. So that was just absolutely fantastic. And we could probably commiserate on Stephen Jeffrey stories for about 2 weeks if we got to have a beer together. He's very diplomatic about that. With that being said, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Holland. Thank
Do
you,
we have an
Mr.
update
Ulrich.
on next week or no?
What?
Update on next week?
Next week, I think we're going to have a star from a bug movie.
from a what movie?
Bug movie.
Alien bug movie.
Alien bug movie.
So stay tuned. We'll have that up by Wednesday. With that being said, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Good night, everybody.